Okay. Hello. Ugh. This isn't my normal setup. I'm just kind of throwing everything together here. Hey, Frodo. Frodo. Baby, come on. Got a Frodo here. Come on, Frodo. People could use you right now. Baby. And he's totally ignoring me. Although, holding Frodo while I'm wearing this like black and white shirt, it looks really nice because he's a black and white cat. Anyway, yeah, just let me know in the sandbox if you can hear me okay. I don't have anything planned for this. Just kind of feeling like some people just need to hang out right now and not be alone. I even have my breakfast with me. Hello, Midi Doctors, Alex Zoot, Zeke, the Beast, and Sheldon. Welcome to the sandbox. Yeah, sorry, as I like eat on stream. Is that like a normal thing to do? I don't know. It's nothing terribly crunchy. Okay, got some people to hear that can hear me. It's all good. Okay. MIDI Doctors Underground Railroad to Canada to escape USA. But as Sheldon says, if I'm Canadian, who's going to be my emotional support Canadian? Yeah. You see, the thing about using Canada as a lifeboat is you want to make sure that there's no holes in that lifeboat first before you jump into it. We're not in that much of a better place right now. We have an election coming up next year, most likely provincially as well for me. And we have the same risks right now with Pierre Poilievre coming into power and a Liberal Party that is just so stuck up their own ass. They can't, they can figure out what I don't know. There's an analogy there that I'm sure is pretty witty and funny. I just can't think of it right now because I wasn't planning on doing this. I just know that some people are probably feeling it. It was a rough night, and it's going to be a rough bunch of nights. And there's some people will want hope. Some people are just feeling doomer. But as with most things, it's neither. It's somewhere in the middle. I'm sure it can be easy to feel doomer right now, and for some people, this is as bad as it's bad. It's bad. And I'm not in the nature of sugarcoating things. My phrase was, positive progressive change is always possible. It may become more difficult, but it's always possible. Well, it's become more difficult. It is definitely more difficult, but it's still possible. It just means a lot more work and effort and energy has to be put into it when a lot of people are feeling like they just want to disconnect and leave. And that's been part of the plan all along from certain groups within the government. See, you have the conservatives who were able to pull their supporters out, light a fire under them, because the Republicans, the conservatives, the right wing, have convinced them that their way of life is on the line, that their lives are on the line, pretty much. Who they are in society, where they fit, all of that is on the line unless they come out and vote. The Democrats, the liberals, they haven't done that. They haven't treated this with the urgency it deserves. Because for a lot of the people who are in government that are liberals and Democrats, they're going to be just fine. It's not their lives that are going to fundamentally change. Sure, in the States, some of your rights will be taken away, but the people who run for office tend to have the money to work around those little issues. See, the Democrats and the liberals here in Canada, they they'd much rather cozy up with right-wingers, fascists, because more of who they are is retained when that happens. Whereas if they have to give up capitalism, if they have to go to socialism, if they actually give the people what they want, then they may no longer be part of that 1% that they so desperately want to cling on to. Oops. We got a cat. Abernathy, are you going to come up? And yeah, it's a lot of people will want to blame others. But the thing is that this isn't just about this campaign. This has been an ongoing process for far longer than I've been plugged into politics. The dismantling of anything kind of socialist. Because in Canada, we have universal health care for now, and only some of it. But pretty much ever since it was established, the liberals and conservatives have been working to get rid of it. Are you going to come over here, or are you just going to continue to be a tease? You know, we had a big boom, and things were getting better. But then I think the elite, the 1%, the capitalists, learned that the people were liking that a bit too much, and that if it were to go down its projected course, then who they are as capitalists and stuff would cease to exist. So their way of life was threatened. Everything that they hold to value is threatened. But they had the foresight to do the long game and start with, buying out the media sources, convincing the public of lies, not allowing people to have like one collective truth anymore. And that has been a very successful process. Because I see so many people mad at the wrong things. Like, they're mad at the right things, cost of housing, grocery, all that sort of stuff. Lack of jobs, lack of secure jobs, lack of healthcare. Like, they're mad at all the right things. They just are mad at the reasons why those things have happened. And the reasons why those things have happened is because the people in power have made it so. Everything is a political choice. Like, this is all legislative. It was a choice by the people in power to have us in this situation to begin with, because we all know the fixes. The fixes are very easy. Socialized housing, universal basic income, full universal health care, pharmacare, dental care, eye care, hearing care, all of that. We know the solutions. We know the solutions will help financially the country. That'll help the people. It will help the economy. We know all of these things. But the people in power have convinced others that it's the queers, it's these petty little things. It's that there's transgender people who want to play on sports. It's the immigrants, the people who are coming over to this country that are the problem. It's not the government. It can't be the government. The government is doing what it's supposed to do. And I don't, unless something very drastic up here in Canada happens, we're going down the same route. Because some people are saying, well, with Trump in power for a year, then maybe people will see blah, blah, blah. Well, the thing is he won't be in power for a year by the time the next election comes up, which is most likely going to be in the next spring, which would then really only be a couple months after Trump is in power, which isn't long enough to really let Canadians absorb what is happening down there. Because even a lot of the things that Trump wants to put through, it's not going to happen overnight. It will happen quickly, but not necessarily overnight. So a lot of the things that, the progressives are hoping Canadians will wake up to, they won't see on time. And even if they see it, they're not going to see it accurately, you know? It's going to be through the media lens where the media lies. Like right now in Canada, the thing that bothers me is how much they demonize Trudeau for all the wrong reasons. There's plenty to actually demonize him on. And they don't focus on things like, you know, Pierre Poilievre still doesn't have a security clearance. Like, we could have a prime minister that didn't go through the qualification process. And if you can't qualify to get a security clearance, it shouldn't just be granted to you. It should disqualify you from running for prime minister. Plain and simple. It's not something that should just be given out to whoever happens to be in that position. You know, there's all this talk about, oh, the Liberal Party is fracturing. There's this revolt going on. Ah, look at all this, as opposed to, you know, maybe some of the good policies that the Liberals put through. There were some. Not great policies. They were decent. But they're not, the Liberals here will not do what it takes to really pull, like change the chain, turn the direction of the train, choo-choo train. Or the ship. I guess the ship works too if it's a really big ship. You see, the thing is even like with things with climate change, if we start doing all the right things right now, we're still not going to feel it for a while because the momentum has to eventually stop and then start coming back. But the momentum of this big, heavy object is still going to push forward, even if we hit full reverse right now. So, you know, it's not doomed to be realistic, I suppose, and that it is going to get worse before it gets better. And so it's important to start planning. Start planning protests, get to know your neighbors, start to organize, start in a network. Start pushing the right politicians. Because if you have a conservative MP, you can push them all they want, doesn't matter. But if there are weak links in the chain, I'm speaking like NDP in particular, because NDP, there are still people with a soul in that party. People who are fighting out, like fighting, pushing back, speaking out, all that sort of stuff. The people that, you know, we kind of used to see the NDP party as being, they do still exist in the NDP because they've only really started to clamp down on allowing people like me into the party since I've been trying to get into the party. So some were able to slip through the cracks and get into the party before the crackdown really began, because now it's all the people in the inner circles of the NDP. They're very elitist, very academic is how I would describe them. You know, very smug about their degrees and PhDs, and they think they know it all. They might have some intersectionality, but they're incapable of thinking outside of even their own intersectionality if they have it. And those who don't have any intersectionality can't think of it. But there are people within the party that I think we need to target and push to actually do something more bold, as in take over the party or start a new party. Because the messaging that this small group within the NDP, they could win it, because it's always that thing with politics. If you strip away all of the like party alliances, all the like this party says this and this party says that, and you just look at the policy, the vast majority of people agree on it. It's just this partisan bullshit that people have fallen for. They want to be part of a team, part of the winning group, all that sort of stuff. But if you just look at the policies, most people agree. And those are the policies that that small group within the NDP actually espouse. So they either have to take over the party and kick out, you know, all the establishment within, or start their own party. Neither is easy. It's a lot of work. I personally would prefer them just taking over the NDP, because then that way a lot of the infrastructure for a party is already in place. Which means Jagmeet Singh needs to step down. He absolutely needs to step down. He's not the one that's going to be able to pull that party around. I have in mind who I would like. There's actually a few people that would make good leaders for the NDP. Again, as much as I dislike Justin Trudeau, and I don't want to see the Liberal win, but in order for the Liberals to win, he needs to step down too. And somebody new needs to come into power in the Liberal Party and convince people that they're offering something different. Because that was one of Kamala's biggest mistakes, was not indicating there'd be any real change from Biden. So if somebody new in the Liberal Party comes in, they have to really, really be like, yes, we're totally going to revamp this party and make it into the party of that you guys think it is, and all this sort of stuff, and blah, 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 blah. And none of it is easy. None of it is easy. But I know there's a certain MP I'm going to be contacting to be like, you need to do something about this. And see if they're willing to actually step up and rise to the occasion. Because I'd like to think that here in Canada, we could watch what's happening down there and be like, okay, no, we're going to do the opposite. We see the horrorness that is down there. But the thing is that this has been going on for a long time. Up here in Canada, we're so smug about the healthcare we get, but it's being stripped away for years now, decades even. And we're not doing anything to stop it. Yet we have the example of where we're going down the States. We see where we're going, and we're not doing anything to stop it. Not like as a whole. There's individuals, of course, like me, who are trying to stop it, but as a big old whole country, we're not doing anything to really stop that trajectory. And then just seeing immediately Justin Trudeau congratulating Donald Trump, saying that they're going to look forward to, the friendship between our two countries is the envy of the world. No, it's not. It's not. It's really not. It's not. It is just so sickening to see world leaders congratulate a fascist. Because, all I feel is just a profound sadness right now. Sadness for the impacts this is going to have on the American people and around the world. Because their politics absolutely influences our politics. Because most of those conspiracy theory driven, racist, bigoted people that are part of the provincial conservative parties and federal conservative parties are literal Trump supporters. You can find pictures of them with MAGA hats. No, it's a feature, not a bug. And we're absolutely going to go down that same route if we don't start waking up, if people don't start paying attention. The right to choose will be taken away, as much as Justin Trudeau likes to pretend that it won't. He can't be the head of the Liberal Party and expect that party to win. Because he's just so fake. So fake. And there is this temptation. I don't know if there is an actual temptation, but some people are just being like, some people out there will say, well, the United States is just getting what they deserve. They deserve this. No one deserves what's about to happen. No one deserves it. It's basically saying the people in Gaza deserve what's happening to them because of Hamas, because of the small group within. And even the reasons why Hamas was created, there were reasons behind that are not so simple. There are reasons why these right-wing radicalists have become the way they are, and it's not so simple. Some of them, yeah, they're just racist, bigoted assholes, but that is a minority within that minority. There's a lot that has led them to this anger, to this hatred, to this drive to want to watch the world burn. I had a train of thought. Where did it go? Sometimes the momentum with the trains of thoughts in my brain, the momentum goes forward, but instead of me being able to pull it back, it just keeps on going forward and out of sight. Let's see, what was I talking about? It was... Anyway, this has been a long time coming, a long time coming. And, oh, right, the people who are saying that, the Americans deserve this. No one deserves it. No one deserves what's about to happen. Even the people who voted for Trump don't deserve what's about to happen to them. And are they going to wake up? Is the Democratic Party going to wake up? No. Are those right-wingers going to wake up when the world doesn't get better? No. Because the right-wingers will just be convinced that it's still somehow the Democrats' fault, and the Democrats will just blame all the people who tried to warn them of the oncoming cliff. It's like, we wouldn't have gone over the cliff if people hadn't warned us that it was there. We just wouldn't have noticed and live in bliss. Oh, well, a lot of people have jumped into the sandbox. I should probably say hi. I'm just kind of rambling away here. Let's see, because I do want this to be a conversation. I want people to, talk and say hi to each other. And, because we are, like I said, we're going to get into some dark times. And as Sheldon points out, there's probably going to be another 2 Superior Court justices down in the States getting seats. And this is where, like, the hard part comes in. There's no reforming it, so that system has to go. Which means there has to be a lot of pushback, a lot of protests, a lot of fights. Like, the United States pretty much needs to redo their constitution. If it, like, the 2 choices are to go absolute fascist or to actually update their constitution. Bet a lot of people in the States have a hard time letting go of that for some reason. Have a really hard time of just letting go of the past, and all the right-wingers of like, oh, well, we wrote this on paper in 1800, so therefore we must still live by it. And for some reason they have a hard time getting past that. Yeah, living in the modern age. But yeah, it's important that people, even if it's through these chats, to connect with each other, to network, to organize, to know you're not alone. The pain you're feeling is very valid. It's very real. There's nothing smug about it. There's going to be people on the right pointing and laughing and stuff. And meanwhile, it's partly it to mask their own pain, because they're going to be feeling it. Because even if you look at the right-wingers that have the money and the power, your Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, they're not happy people. They're full of anger. They're full of rage. They have everything and still don't have anything. Same with Elon Musk. He's not a happy person. Donald Trump, not a happy person. But, a lot of them will point at, the liberal tears, oh no, and laugh and stuff, because a lot of this is just to own the libs. But also for a lot of people who voted, it's not about owning the libs. It's not about anything, really, because there's so... voter information, what is it? People just don't know what's going on. They're not plugged in. They don't know what's going on. They hear a catchphrase. They hear a line because they don't watch all of the things. Like, it's so easy for us who are probably in the sandbox right now and watching and whatnot to think, how could you do this? How could you do this to yourself? You're voting against your own best interests, and we know this, and we know this. But we're so focused in our bubble. Like, it took me to high school, believe it or not, for me to actually really understand that there are people who believe the things in the Bible, like believe the flood happened, that we started from 2 people. Because to me, all of the stories in the Bible, I just kind of took them as fables, fables to teach lessons to live by and whatnot. I never once actually thought people believed all of this because it's so outlandish, but I was living in my own little personal bubble. And I do that a lot. Sometimes I'll say something that I just assume everyone knows, like, oh, we live in the Milky Way. Apparently not everyone knows that's the actual name of our galaxy. Like, it's hard. You don't know what other people don't know. And for the vast majority of people, in general, around the world, they're not so plugged into politics. They just see their own day-to-day grind. And then they may tune in to hear a debate, part of a debate, a press conference, and they hear one thing they like, and they will vote based on that one thing that they like. So Trump keeps on saying the gas prices are too high, you know, the axe the tax thing that Pierre Poilievre is going with. We could pick apart how it's wrong and stuff, but we can't sit down with all the people who don't know why it's wrong, convince them of that. Like we don't have enough people power for that, to individually go around and talk sense into everyone and to educate them. You know, that's a failure of our education system. That's a failure of our media. And when we say a failure, it's not a failure. It's done what it's intended to do. It's failed us, the people. But they didn't fail. The media did what, you know, the people who bought it wanted it to do. And so you have so few people down in the States actually, they don't know. That's the thing. They don't know they're voting against their own interests. And so to get mad at them and say that they somehow deserve this is cruel, because they're going to suffer too. They're going to suffer too. You know, and of course they might not suffer as much as some people, you know, queer folks, people who care about their reproductive rights and all that sort of stuff, but they're still going to suffer. And the goal is to minimize all suffering, regardless of the person, even if the person who is suffering is a douchebag. Ideally, I don't want them to suffer. Because the flip side is a lot of people became these horrible douchebags because of the suffering they've already been through. So ideally, you want them to stop suffering so that they can heal. And maybe then they won't be such a douchebag. But let's see. Hello to everyone who has hopped into the Sandbox and who is watching. I know people are still probably feeling a little bit raw right now, but I know for me, there's not usually somebody streaming this time of day, so I thought I'd just hop in because everyone's waking up to this new reality down in the States and might be feeling it. And, you know, the majority report starts in a couple hours. They're not going to be in a good headspace either. So I'll try my best to be a little bit level-headed. And I'll go into, I guess, a story of how I've overcome some adversities in my life and how, you know, it's just a little it's a dot, and it's personal, and it's, you know, it centers me and blah, blah, blah. But there are lessons in it. And that can go towards a much grander scale, I suppose, and just how you survive when you think you've lost everything. But here's the thing. When you have nothing else to lose, like there's just nothing left to lose, that means you only have everything to gain. It means no matter what you do, you're only going to end up with gains because you've got nothing else to lose. So if you try something and it fails, you're back where you were before you tried that thing. But then if you try something and it succeeds, you've gained something. And even that is a very long process. And I'll talk a bit more about it, but checking in with people in the Sandbox. Daniel Van Wyden. I find it strange sense of calm that the next Canadian Fed election will be a landslide for cons and there will be no suspense or false hope. Yeah, I know, like for me, watching people suddenly get excited about um, the election and Harris's chances, seeing them get excited about that, like, oh yeah, it's going to be a landslide. Like they finally allowed themselves to believe it. And at that moment, I'm like, this is Hillary Clinton all over again. And this is why I hate polling. I hate the polling because you want to believe the polls. You want to believe that, support your ideas. But how many of the polls are actually accurate? But you don't know which polls are going to be accurate till after the fact. And some polls are, some polls aren't. Some polls historically have been and then suddenly aren't, and vice versa. So I hate the polling system. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. Uh, but yeah, I see it happening here. And some people would be like, oh, well, no, people will see what kind of douchebag Pierre Poilievre is. But the thing is that you know how some people would say they would vote for a potato against Donald Trump? Well, Pierre Poilievre is just a potato. Like that's all he is. He is a potato that you can put a face on. They're not voting for Pierre Poilievre. They're voting for the rhetoric, the right-wing rhetoric. He is just the face piece. He's the avatar of all these right-wing organizations that own him and bought him and tell him what to say. It does not matter how inarticulate he is about it. It doesn't matter if he even messes up a bit, as long as he's loyal to the message, as long as he gets it out there. He could literally be any white man and and they would vote for him. So it doesn't matter how much of an idiot he looks like, and he does. People are still going to vote for him because they're not voting for him. And again, the problem we run into is with the media. He'll say something during a press conference that is a flagrant lie, and the media does not call him out on it in that moment. And so for the low information voters that just tune in randomly that one time, they hear what they want to hear, and then suddenly they they don't plug in anymore because they've gotten what they think they need. Like, oh, that's all I need. YouTube is getting mad at me again. They're on to me. YouTube is on to me. For those of you who don't know, I despise ads on YouTube, on Twitter, online in general, for my own personal reasons, but I despise them with a passion. And so I have monetized my channel, which means there are going to be advertisements and stuff. I can't help that. I can minimize it. And so when you set up a live stream, you have the choice of having it automatically add in the ads, or you can manually do it. So I choose manual and let my ADHD work. As in, I then completely forget to tap the button to add an ad. I should probably switch it over. Not because I want to force ads down your throat, but it would probably help me in the algorithms if I actually allow YouTube to show the ads. Darn it, where was I? I got so distracted. But, oh yeah, I was talking about, seeing this coming in the Canadian election. So the thing is that the other thing why Pierre Poilievre could win, even with all this rhetoric and being a moron and stuff, is that there's nothing powerful countering him. There is no progressive populist in Canada. Nobody is trying to be a progressive populist in Canada. I'm going to IM a certain politician and tell him to, grow a spine and do what's needed. And if you know a politician that you think could be that populist, contact them. And now is the good time to start, because don't wait for the election cycle to start before you start pressuring and changing and going out there and fighting and trying to spread the message. Because a lot of people, especially down in the States, you might just want to shut down right now. You can't. We're going to be in survival mode for quite some time. But, you know, there is just this calm dread going on right now, knowing it's about to happen in this country as well. But it doesn't have to. If we get enough people informed and get enough people involved, it doesn't have to happen here as well. And we need to find the right people to step up. Like, I'd be more than happy to be that person. I tried to get involved in politics, and I'd be the loudmouth. I'd be the one on stage. I'd be the progressive populist. I have no fear about doing all of that, but I can't get into a party because I'm a progressive populist. So you need to get somebody who's already in the inn, who's already in the house, in order to find that progressive populist. But I have no problem in seeing the system burn to, you know, build something new that's better and actually serves all the people. Daniel Van Wyden. Matthew Green is a good example. Oh, yeah, maybe. No, that's actually who I'm thinking about when I say Green contact him. He's not too far from me, so I would absolutely go there and campaign for him and do whatever is needed. But he's actually the one that I'm thinking about. Jacqueline, oh, you've told me how to pronounce your last name. Sorry, Jacqueline. Lich? I know that this will embolden Polyev's goons. In the one hand, on the other, more people will not pretend that they are harmless conservatives. Yeah, I think, like, on the flip side, this might actually encourage people to be like, oh, so this can happen. These horrible people can still get in, even with everything we know about them. So it might actually motivate more people to get out there to be like, let's not do what the states did. But the thing is that it can't come from the establishment. That is not going to come from the establishment. It's going to come from all the people on the ground, including all the people who say, don't vote because it doesn't matter, or don't vote because the system is broken, or don't vote because the liberals are horrible, blah, 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 blah bullshit. Okay, I voter shame. I do that. I am not afraid of voter shaming. In this upcoming election, there's probably not going to get enough time for us to have a populist leader. What needs to happen, and I've seen other people kind of, you know, go over the same thing, is that for every riding, the Liberals and the NDP need to look at each other and honestly say who has the better chance of winning. And if it's the other side, they say, okay, fine, we're not going to run a candidate. That's our best chance. And then we would end up in a minority government position, which I'm fine with. It'd be nice if it was the Liberals that were in the minority, like the backup. Well, no, it wouldn't, because then they would just go for in their vote. The Liberals suck. And the Liberals are more likely to support conservatives than they are NDPers. The liberal establishment is more likely to support the conservatives. The liberal people, the people who tend to vote liberal, would more likely lean towards the NDP. Because, like I've said plenty of times before, the liberals don't fear a fascist takeover because it doesn't affect them. So it's not their lives on the line. They're not feeling it. Their lives will go on just fine, whereas the conservatives have convinced their base that their lives are on the line. But since the liberals don't feel it, the liberal establishment doesn't feel it, they don't relay that to the people, even though very much our lives are literally on the line for a lot of people, So if the push is going to happen, it's not going to be from within the Liberal Party. It's not going to be from within the NDP. It has to be from the people forcing the issue. So, Life, this reminds me of how more than half of Americans are illiterate and don't exceed 6th grade education, and also power of propaganda. I see how Nazis rose. Yeah, the broken education system, it's part of the problem. It's, well, not part of the problem. it hasn't failed. It's done what it's supposed to do. They have taught what they meant to teach. The media did not fail. It did what it intended to do. The education system did not fail. It did what it intended to do. Keep the population ignorant, uninformed, dumb, as some people would say. But keep them scared, keep them uninformed. They're easy to manipulate. Zeke Debbies, looks like the US is still not ready for a woman president. I went through that a lot when Hillary lost, because back then I wasn't as plugged into American politics. Oops. So I didn't know like all the other reasons why she was a horrible candidate. But what I saw was a woman who was more than qualified, like had all the qualifications you could hope for a president, still lose to that monster. And this time it's even worse. Because as a lot of people are saying, like the first time you can almost forgive people because they didn't know what Trump was. But now there's no denying what he is. And Kamala is a far better candidate than Hillary ever was. And yet she still couldn't win against that monster. You know, it doesn't bode well for humanity in general. Tree C, I'm here for the emotional support. I brought emotional support rat. Rats are cute. Very intelligent animals. I have my cats, but they're not coming on my lap right now. Jacqueline says the NDP could win if they ramp up the left-wing agenda and let go of the restraining orders of Canada media, but I don't see that Greens understand socialism at all, and that is the point. Yeah, if the NDP want to pull ahead, they need a populist in power, and they can't rely on mainstream media. Because mainstream media has never supported the NDP. It's one of my frustrating things, like here again in Ontario, you'll see the media talk about Doug Ford, and then they'll talk about Bonnie Style. Yeah, it's Bonnie, no. I get their names, Bonnie Crumby. They'll talk about Bonnie Crumby. She's the leader of the Ontario Liberals. They don't even have party status. They have so few seats. The leader of the official opposition is Merritt Stiles of the NDP, but the media rarely ever mentions her for some reason. So they can't rely on mainstream media to get their message out there. And the thing is that the Republicans, they didn't rely on mainstream media to get their message out there. You know, people aren't becoming radicalized because of CNN. Even Fox News to some extent. You know, they're already radicalized by the time they're watching Fox News. And even then there's a certain leveling off of radicalization that happens on Fox News. The real radicalization happens online. And people keep on saying, well, online isn't real life. Yeah, it is. It is. For a lot of people, online is real life. Because that's the other part of the factor into it is disconnecting people from their communities, from each other, from relationships, from friendships, from family. So you're feeling isolated and you're desperate to be part of a group. And then Trump comes along and he says he loves everyone. It's fake. We know he's lying. But how does that feel to somebody who's been kicked out of their family for being a horrible person? You know, they've become a horrible, bigoted person and their family no longer talks to them. They've lost a lot of their friends. And then suddenly Trump comes around and says, you're perfect the way you are and I love you. That's how you get one loyal ass base. So it's very important that we start connecting with people again, connecting with community, organizations, all that sort of stuff. And, you know, there's far more value in a found family than the family you were born with. And don't be afraid to embrace found families. Daniel, liberals are scared to hold liberal leadership race because pro-Palestinian candidate will force them to debate the issue in the open. Yeah, probably. Like, I don't argue that. It's probably not the only reason, but there's a very strong, that will make the issue of what's happening in Gaza a little bit more front and center and point out how much of a Zionist Justin Trudeau is. As he constantly says, Israel has a right to defend itself. And he has said Zionism is not a dirty word. And they're pushing it within the upper echelons of the Liberal Party to try to make it policy. Like, the report that came out, I covered it in my live stream on Monday, where the handbook on how to treat anti-Semitism, no other religion gets treated. And I don't want to say religion, because it's not the Jewish people, it is Zionism. And you don't see, like, the handbook on how to deal with Islamophobia, the handbook on how to deal with anti-queer hate, in the same way, where the people who make those handbooks can literally say that, if you say something, if you misgender me, then that means that it is now very much, I will absolutely lock you up even if you just accidentally say it. It's just, because, well, yeah, misgendering can be hate speech. Can be. It's basically under a protected status. But it doesn't mean that should somebody misgender me, even on purpose, it doesn't mean they get locked away. It's not how it works. But with the anti-Semitism handbook, they're literally trying to make it so that if you try to call out what the Israel state is doing, that's anti-Semitism and should be punishable. Like, imagine, Muslims saying that if you call out Saudi Arabia for their regimes or something like that, then you're basically accusing all Muslim people of being horrid monsters and you should be punished. It's funny. And then the Zionists will complain of a double standard. Like, there is a double standard, but they're benefiting from it. Jacqueline, is Matthew Green socialist? Sock dem Bernie type. He's been more outspoken. He's gone to strike lines to support the strikers. He's gone to pro-Palestinian encampments. I'd say he's more in line with the Bernie Sanders. I wouldn't necessarily say he's a socialist. Daniel Van Wyden, I think entryism into Liberal Party is even more of lost cause than it is in the NDP. That is a large part of the problem with our political party system that we have here, is that there are gatekeeping so that they can screen out people from even becoming candidates who might be people that are too outspoken. And that's what happened with me, is that, oh no, you tend to speak your mind and you have a sense of humor, therefore you can't be a candidate for the NDP because you might say something that goes counter to our messaging. It's like, yeah, I would. If it's the wrong messaging, I would say something. And then they just end up appointing a lot of candidates who aren't passionate about the riding. Sometimes they don't even live in the riding. Who aren't passionate about running. Sometimes they just appoint people who didn't even want to run in the first place. And a lot of the energy from the people who are actually like eager to run and have the messaging and have the energy, then they're cut out of the party. And then all the people who are energized about that person, they lose them as well. And so it's just, it sucks all the energy out of the party. But the thing that always gets me with the liberals and the conservatives is you can see how much the crossover is. If a candidate doesn't get into one party, they immediately turn around and try to get into the other party. And there's a lot of former conservatives that are now liberals, a lot of former liberals that are now conservatives. Again, it's The conservatives love to say that the Liberals and the NDP are the same party. And as I've said, around election time, the Liberals and the NDP are the same party, because the NDP moves, they take a hard turn to the center, and they're pretty much in line with the Liberals, because the Liberals will also make a hard turn to the center from the right. So both parties will merge in the center and they become one party. And so it's hard to distinguish which one is better. But whenever it's not election season and they go back this way, then the Liberals and the Conservatives meet up again. And so we really do have a two-party system. It's just a little bit more fluid. So life. To be honest, I knew deep down Kamala wouldn't win because she's a black woman. I want to believe it's more than that. It's just bad calls like Liz Cheney, but Andrew Tate would have beat her. There's going to be a lot of analysis about that. It played a factor. It might not be the factor, but it played a factor. But that's the thing. There's no one factor. Even with Hillary, there was no one factor. And you could it's like filling a rowboat with pebbles until the boat sinks. No one pebble, not even a handful of those pebbles would have made a difference. But eventually enough pebbles get thrown in that the boat sinks. And you can pick and choose what pebbles you think might have added to it, but they all added to it, and you could have taken out a couple handfuls and it still wouldn't have mattered. And so all these one-off issues doesn't solve the problem of the ship filling with pebbles. Like, the problem was all the pebbles being shoveled into that little rowboat. And you have to get to the root cause of why that is happening, who's shoveling the pebbles in order to solve that problem. You can't solve it by removing some of the pebbles. Daniel Van Wyden, I don't think he'd self-describe as that, but he is to the left of the NDP for sure. Yeah, I think we're thinking the same thing. And I also think he has the right energy. Like, when I've heard him speak, he can speak to a crowd. Let's put it that way. Oh, a lot of people have been chit-chatting. I'm like way behind in the Sandbox. Oh, Jacqueline, thank you so much for the $2.79 Canadian for a cup of coffee. Thanks for the chat. Thank you for the coffee. This is actually one of my favorite mugs. I thought it was really cute. And for those who are really astute, you're going to see something odd about how I drink from this mug. See where the handle is? I do this automatically. It's by nature. I don't even think about it anymore. But occasionally I'd like, oh yeah, this is the unusual way to drink from a coffee mug. I do it all the time. And that's because when I was a child, I was a germaphobe. I'm not as much, but I still kind of am. But as a child, it was really severe, you know. Again, when I look back to my life, I think autism has always been there, you know, seeing the signs. But I used to be a severe germaphobe when I was a kid, like, and when it came to mugs, the place on the mug other people were least likely to drink from was by the handle, because I never saw anyone else drink from around here. So I knew that if I had a mug, I'd have a much safer bet that if I drank from there, other lips hadn't touched that area. And since that started when I was a child, it's just so natural to me right now. I don't even think about it when I pick up a mug. Because I don't hold it by the handle while I drink, because that's a bit awkward to drink it like that. So I hold it like this and drink like that. So, I don't know, just a little thing that nobody needs to know or cares about. But why don't I quickly see if I can get caught up with the Sandbox so that we can continue on with this little chat. And emotional support. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I'm not used to seeing this many people watching the live stream, and I have like 0 planned. It's hi everyone. I understand why you're here. I don't want to say I'm glad you're here because I understand why you're here. And this isn't the normal time I do a live stream either, because I just kind of woke up. Like I only had like 1 bite of my breakfast so far. It's my yogurt salad, as I call it. Yogurt with crushed pineapple and seeds and granola mix. But I just felt an itch to get on here because I know a lot of people are probably just not wanting to be alone right now, and I feel that. So I figured I'd hop on here so that there was at least a little bit of community for some of the people who tend to hang out in these chats, because I know not too many people stream right now. And it's still over an hour away before majority report starts, and they're going to be in a bad headspace too. It's not going to be good. So let's get back to the sandbox. The anti-corporatus, when the US coughs, the rest of the world gets a cold. It's what we're about to see. You know, everyone keep on saying, well, the Biden administration was supporting a genocide and stuff and blah, 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 blah. I could see the US becoming more actively involved with it now, encouraging it. As opposed to just propping up the Israeli government, I could see them actively encouraging it and supporting it and participating in it now. Like I said, I'm just filled with like a profound sadness for everyone around the world, in the United States, in Canada, because of the ripple effects of the United States. It's like a seismic shift around the world. What's happening in Lebanon, what's happening in the West Bank, it's going to get a lot worse, a lot worse. Whereas if Harris had been president, she could have been movable. Not as much as we would have liked, of course, but maybe have an arms embargo at the bare minimum. But I could actually see Donald Trump participating in it and encouraging it. Jacqueline, I get worried about post-label syndrome, which actually turns out to be a pragmatic right wing. Yeah. Let's see. Lightning Rod, Mr. Putin is thrilled. Yeah, what's happening in the Ukraine? And saying the zombie apocalypse is really a financial apocalypse. Andrew K., it's going to be bad for everyone. Yeah. And I know, again, it's hard not to feel doomer right now. And don't try to not to. You know, don't try to give yourself an artificial sense of hope right now. I'm not the type of person, like, even when I'm in my darkest depths, I will never tell people to tell me what I want to hear. And I don't want people to do that. I don't want people to tell me it's going to get better, because you don't know that. And I don't want that false sense of hope. Really, the only way to get through this doomerism is to do something, is to take action, is to get involved with your communities, your networks, start organizing. The only way to push through these feelings is to actively do something to try to improve the situation. The longer people just sit around and, you know, feel hopeless, the harder it is to dig out of it. And again, I don't even necessarily blame those people because it has been draining being involved in politics for so long. But at some point, you just got to take that leap. You know, if you can't stand still, you need to take a step. And then if you take a step and it's the wrong way, then you turn around. Low information voters. Yep, that's the word I was looking for. Jacqueline, personally, I'm tired of being yelled at when I go door to door and people just want to tell you that you're stupid to be racist. To tell you you're stupid not to be racist. Yeah, going door to door is hard. And I think part of the reason why they only go to actual supporters is that they don't want to deal with the negativity of going to other doors. The way we campaign has to change. It just has to change. The old ways of, like, that's the thing. We're in a new world with this technology, with the internet, with online media taking over mainstream media, with how people personally interact with each other. All of that has changed. So how can you expect to keep the same old campaign styles and have any impact on people when you're campaigning to empty doors? You know, you can have the best ground game in the world, but if all the doors are empty because nobody's answering the door, nobody's communicating that way anymore, you have to go to where the people are. You can't just get mad that they're not where you think they should be. Megra? I'm not saying your name right. I'm just going to do this. R.I.P. America. It's a sad day in America. I'm still in. Yeah. It's it's okay to feel sad right now. Jacqueline, at least we have communists here so that the NDP can't be called communists and we don't have to start off with that. Well, they call Justin Trudeau a communist. And the thing is most Canadians don't even know that there is a Communist Party. Well, there's actually two. There's the Communist Party and the Marxist-Leninist Party, and they don't get along. Like, literally, if you go to the Wikipedia page for the Marxist-Leninist Party, they'll call themselves the Communist Party on there, but then there's a side note saying that if you're looking for the Communist Party of Canada, go to this link. Hunger Games 1989. I am just so depressed right now between being LGBTQIA person and disabled person and someone who has a uterus. I know that feeling. Daniel Van Wyden, we need a wellness check on that pollster lady from Iowa. Thisby, thank you for this. Thank you guys for coming out. Love from Vancouver, Canada. Yeah, the whole, again, this is why I hate the polling, because suddenly that one poll came out from that one person who's been accurate all along. And it's like, you know what? My grandma was telling us that she could guess the gender of all the kids born. And she was never wrong until there was me, who's non-binary. But that's the thing, like you're literally just trying to guess the gender of something. Like the polls, I hate the polls because they influence people too much and they give people a false sense of hope, and people don't, they only pay attention to the polls that they like. Everyone is Donald Trump when it comes to polls, because he only paid attention to the polls that he likes and dismissed the rest. And everyone else did that as well. You know, everyone looked at that Seltzer, is it Ann Seltzer or whatever, at her poll, and they latched onto it as a source of hope. But instead, you have to treat every election and just like vote with the urgency that your vote matters, regardless of what any poll says. Like, that is just vote with the urgency that you can actually make the change. Don't rely on polls. Don't get a false sense of hope. Don't get a false sense of security that you don't have to go out because of this. You know, look around you, see the attitude in your area. It's, yeah. Thisby, I was thinking this could influence more votes for Trudeau due to how scared Canadians get of Trumpism with the cons. I don't think so. I don't think so. Unfortunately. I do a lot of talk about Trudeau and his stance and stuff. I was saying at the beginning of the stream, like, Trump isn't going to become president until next year. He got elected, but he's not going to become officially president until January and stuff. And if we have a spring election, that's only a few months, really, for us to see the impact. And a lot of the con supporters here are Trump supporters. A lot of the MPs, MLAs, MPPs that are conservatives are Maple MAGA. They've had MAGA hats. They've gone to MAGA events, all of that. And people are sick and tired of Trudeau. Like, Trudeau has Biden energy. And so he needs to step down as leader, and they need to put someone in now. Don't wait till the last minute. They need to put someone in now who can convince people that they're going to be a new Liberal Party and offer something different than what has been offered. Because some of the biggest flaws with the Biden campaign is they waited too long to replace him, and then the person they replaced him with, at first, everyone was energized because she offered something different. But then as soon as she fell in line and basically said, we're going to be the exact same, off a cliff. So Trudeau has to step down, and somebody else in the Liberal Party has to step up and convince people that they're going to be a different Liberal Party. That's the only way that they're going to pull through. And again, I'm not keen on having Liberals in power. I'd much rather the NDP. But I'd much rather the Liberals than the Conservatives. Because everyone will still get mad at me for saying you should vote for the lesser evil, you know. It's harm reduction, harm minimization, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I stand by that. Because so many people will not make it to the next election to be able to vote because of what's happened here. I've been underground looking at the exit polling. It really seems like purchasing power really decided the election, which doesn't look good for Canada here, considering purchasing power is in the toilet. Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. Everyone's mad about the grocery prices. And this comes into the lack of education. I saw something on Twitter recently where somebody was driving by a tent encampment saying, this is Trudeau's Canada. Housing and rent prices are provincial, and most provinces are being run by Conservatives. A lot of the lack of purchasing power we have right now is because of Conservatives. But they'll blame the Liberals because the Liberal is the federal party right now. And if it wasn't because they were a federal party, it'd be because they had been one once upon a time, or the province is more liberal or something like that. Like, they always blame the other party. But there's lots of factors, and yeah, the Liberals could have done things to improve it, but they didn't. But they could have only minimized it. There's other bigger issues going on as well globally. So it's not like they could have completely gotten rid of it, but there's a hell lot more they could have done. Amiga, how's living in Canada compared to here in the US? It's gotten crazy here. I've never lived in the US, so I wouldn't be able to compare. All I know is that I don't think I can travel to the US in a lot of the states because of my license. My official government ID has my gender as X because I'm non-binary. And I don't know if that might cause me troubles depending on what state I'm in. Alex Opinion Channel from the UK and centrist inaction on material conditions and reforming democracies. If they acted, we could change everything. Yeah, material conditions definitely need to change. And reforming our democracies definitely needs to happen. Like the whole parliamentary system, like the whole, it needs to go. It needs to go. Like the entire way we vote needs to change. But the people who are in power don't want it to change because that's how they stay in power. They don't want to change to a system that actually serves the people because then it wouldn't serve them. Bisbee, the NDP just won British Columbia against the Cons by a few votes after recounts and mail ballots counts, hoping the same for Harris, but not holding my breath. The direct action is priority now. Yeah, don't. She's lost. She's lost. That's all there is to it. Amiga, maybe it isn't safe anywhere. The world is crazy. Have you been watching too much Fallout? In Fallout, they kind of use that idea of like trying to find safe zones only to realize that there is no safe zone. Every place has its own issues, its own problems, its own lack of safety. There are places that are safer. Like in Canada, relatively speaking to the safe, we are safer, but we are not safe when you're queer. And I've done plenty of videos on that. And so it's important to just find networks, people around you you feel safe with, people you can turn to for support, people you feel safe with. But it's not, you know, we live in cities with right-wing neighbors, so there's not necessarily going to be anywhere that's safe, but that's never been the case at all in history. There's always been the potential to be unsafe everywhere. And the thing is that relatively speaking, again, we are safer than many periods of history, many times in you guys know the sentence I'm trying to say. I'm not a morning person, and I didn't sleep much last night. Here, everyone needs to see you right now. Here we go. Here we go. We got a teddy bear kitty right here. This is Abernathy. I've had him for just over a year and a few months. And so that makes him almost 2 years old. Uh-oh, he just saw a ladybug land on the light. I get a lot of ladybugs in my apartment. Drives the cats crazy. But he's looking up at it. It's like, no, you don't get to attack my box light to try to eat the ladybug. But luckily they do go after bugs a lot, which is nice. Other cats just kind of stare at them. For real, Lauren, my gut kept telling me this wasn't going to go well despite my hopes, my vote. I'm truly devastated. I'm beyond terrified for what's to come. Just stay in the moment. Right now, you're safe. Surround yourself with people. Plan to organize. We're all going to have to put in a lot of work. Both sides of the border. Both sides of the border. But it is a very valid fear, unfortunately. And it's not going to be easy when you see people on the right wing mocking you over it, mocking you over your very legitimate fear. So try not to focus on them. Don't watch it if possible. Don't listen to the jeers. Stay off of Twitter if you don't have yourself in a bubble on Twitter. I'm pretty much in a bubble on Twitter, so I can tweet things out all I want, and 3 people will see it. But, you know, keep in mind that the people jeering you will also be suffering under this as well. And a lot of people don't understand why they're in that position. I was talking a bit more about it at the beginning of the stream. But a lot of the people on the right wing are also victims of the systems. And they were used and manipulated, and they're also going to suffer greatly under this. So while they might be laughing now, it's only to mask their own pain. Because nobody on the right Like anyone who's right wing, you're not happy people. Like I look at them, they are not happy people. Let's see, I'll try to get caught up with the Sandbox. For real, Lauren, I'm scared too for all of us. For my kids, my family, I'm terrified. The truer if. Don't think I've seen you in the Sandbox before. In fact, I don't think I've seen a lot of you in the Sandbox before, so welcome. What needs to happen here is a non-con voter need to get their heads out of their asses, improve the material conditions of their constituents. Because that's what people want. You know, the prices are too high. Can't afford this, you know, my rent and all that sort of stuff. It's the material conditions that that people are suffering with. Unfortunately, all the policies that the conservatives will put in place will just make it worse. And then they'll just blame the liberals or the left or whatever. Let's see. Roger Babin, I don't have much faith in liberals seeing the progressive light. They just stick with the status quo. Yeah, the liberals always do. The change isn't going to come from the liberals. The truer if, I suspect the only upside to Donnie's win is that we're going to have a year of seeing his bullshit and vote against the cons up here. I was talking about it earlier. It's not going to be enough because, again, Trump will officially get into power in January, and he can't make all of the changes he wants overnight. So it's not going to happen soon enough. Like, the changes will still happen fast, no doubt. Hey, sorry. My cat is where he's not supposed to be. No, come on. Ah! This little brat nearly knocked over my monitor. Yeah, so as I was saying, the change won't happen. We won't see the outcome of the results before the next election. If the election was actually going to be held in the fall, then there's a chance, but I strongly suspect we're going to have a spring election. And then here in Ontario, Doug Ford will follow suit right afterwards because he'll want to rely on voter apathy and voter exhaustion before. So I imagine once the federal party announces an election, Ontario will be very shortly after. So Life Jesus, I pulled my phone out of the pocket and Badass was one pocket click away from a ban. Oh no. Angie DeWolf, Alberta has been taking notes from Trump cult and we're in for it now. Let's see. Andrew K. Biden deserves much of the blame. Yep. Merritt sucks, unfortunately. If you're talking about Merritt Stiles, I totally agree. She was like a horrible pick for the NDP as a leader here in Ontario. Very elitist, rich, all that sort of stuff. But again, that's part of the problem with the party politics is not anyone can just run to be leader of the party. You have to pay a lot of money in order to be able to run. Like, what is it, $50,000 or something like that in order to be able to run to be the candidate. Look at the color under his chin. It's so beautiful. He's a Bengal mix. I didn't know that when I got him. I thought he was just a pretty tabby. He's a handful. Yeah, Daniel saying that the NDP keep out anyone who self-describes as a socialist. Hey! They do. They do. God, cat, you shed like nothing. This cat, I've never had a short hair cat that sheds this much. But he's still just a baby. Let's see. So Benjamin Kendrick, Project 2025 is real and is very scary. Everyone needs to read up on this. Last time they had guardrails. This time they have Laura Trump running the RNC. Yeah, I think, was it Mike from the Humanist Report did a good video on Project 2025. And Benjamin saying the NDP has been such a letdown. Yeah. Like I said, there's members within that need to take over that party. But the party as a whole, it's not going to get us, Jugmeat isn't going to light that party on fire. And thank you so much, John Martinez, for the $5 super chat. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for coming out to the Sandbox. I think I missed it. Oh, yeah, there it is up there. Okay. Thank you so much for that. Super appreciate it. I missed a whole chunk of the conversation. The Sandbox must have jumped past it. Roger Babin, I think it's as simple as we underestimate the amount of genuine fascists in America. It's not a small handful of powerful people. It's 100 plus Americans, million Americans. Yeah. Seth Evans, like ignoring the left on Palestine is an example, but it's also just a general offering any alternative to capitalist hellscape, right gleefully cheering for and on completely obvious too. Yeah. Tom Trask, hey comrades, hello. I need to trim his nail. It is like digging into me and it hurts. Here we go. One of his nails got really long suddenly. Dan Mickle, well, I'm grieving hard today. Benjamin, Trump also won 51% of the popular vote. Freya South, just swapping account, thought I'd sub and like under this name. I was modding Novara Media. It's Choki, be right back. Oh, hello. Benjamin, we can all grieve together. It's 8 a.m. on Vancouver Island right now. Benjamin saying Trump said Israel can take the West Bank after they are done with Gaza. It's going to get so... I'm just terrified for the people over there. Jacqueline, oh, they're just going to move the army and take over and leave with keys with Bibi. Okay. Oh, let's get back down. I'm trying to get caught up to the Sandbox, but then I get talking about things, which is good because I think people just need to be around others right now. And this is how you do it in this modern day and age, is to hop online and be in a chat and chat with others. Tom Trask, not running on zero sleep myself. Choky, but sure going to take a nap after lunch. I'm at a deficit. I didn't sleep much last night either. Hence I'm doing a morning stream because I was up early enough. Roger Babin, I don't think Trump is ideological. I don't believe he'll deport millions of immigrants and go through with Project 2025 in full. He's out for himself, in my opinion. It's not going to be about Trump. Keep in mind his health is not that great. The likelihood of him making it through the entire president... No, you're looking at President J.D. Vance. And it's not so much what Trump will or won't do, it's what the people he put in power will do. And before you had the guardrails, before you had people standing up to him, you don't have any of that now. So it wouldn't surprise me if he tries. He might not be able to actually do it because there might actually be enough pushback from the public, but it wouldn't surprise me if he actually tries. So Life, I actually think Trump is just the rights useful idiot, and once all the pieces are in place, he'll cast them aside the best they're able to make the 25th Amendment in age and health. Yeah, the Republicans are a little bit more cutthroat like that too. So as soon as Trump is no longer useful, I don't think they would have any issues trying to pull that. Whereas the liberals were like, oh no, we can't call out Biden for his health. We can't do that. I think as soon as Trump is no longer useful, they will go there. They will go there. This cat is very heavy. Come here. People want to see you. You're a very adorable kitty. Let's see. I'll try to skip through some of these. John Martinez, it's a shame I cannot apply for asylum in Canada. Not saying Canada is much better, but at least better than the absolute hell this place will be. I remember signing a petition and it went to the legislator and everything. I'll have to check on the status where making it so that LGBTQ plus folks could actually apply for asylum in Canada without the first safe country rule or something like that. But they can apply based on the discrimination if there's no other states that they can basically turn to where they'll be safe. Hunger Games 1989, Kenzie Page, I agree. I'm non-binary. I just got my doctor to refer me for bottom surgery. I'm worried about that along with my existence, plus with all my other trans friends, plus the LGBTQ people. Yeah. And who's Ken? Did I miss? I missed a comment. I don't know who that was in relation to. Well, thank you everyone again for coming out. I know this is hard times for people. Jacqueline, I have been in 2 BC elections where the NDP supporters were the ones yelling at me about our candidate. Yeah, that's the thing. The base of the NDP isn't happy. The base of the NDP needs to do something about that. The base of the NDP really needs to kick out all the people who don't actually represent the party. Like, there needs to be like an NDP strike from its membership and kick out all of the people who don't represent the values. That's the only, like, again, there has to be a lot of ground game with this going forward, a lot of organizing. And so the riding associations should just outright refuse to work with the head office unless they get candidates in that they actually want to campaign for. Let's see. Grant Johnston, the media and TikTok must be regulated, and fascist extremists preaching violence absolutely must be outlawed from running from office. A lot should have happened. Like, that's the thing. Like, if the liberals down in the States had actually held the Republicans accountable for everything they did, like trying to overthrow the government and actually took them to court and did everything that they should have done, wouldn't be in this position right now. This has been years in the making. Like, one campaign wouldn't have made a difference. Absolutely years in the making. Let's see. Just trying to scan through some of these, get closer to the bottom so I'm caught up with the conversation. So I'm not backtracking and then people comment what I'm backtracked about. So then we're in like circular conversations. What are you getting at, Abernathy? Cat can be such a brat sometimes. Lanny Lou, thank you for holding our hands this morning. You're welcome. I'm not a morning person. Sorry, I just have like a little crumb tickling the back of my throat. There, hopefully that got rid of it. John Martinez, if PP wins, I'll be just as sad for Canada as I am now. Yeah, thank you. We'll need support then too. Benjamin asking why can't Pierre Polyev get security clearance? Well, only he knows why at this point. The only way to find out is for him to try. He needs, like, it's again one of my frustrations, and the media isn't doing anything about it. It needs to be a bigger story. If he can't qualify to get security clearance, there's no way he should be qualified. He should be absolutely disqualified from becoming prime minister. Like, it should be, because it will be granted to him automatically should he become prime minister, but it should be, if you can't actually go through the process and get it, it disqualifies you, not the other way around. John Martinez, Kamala also hurt herself by supporting the Palestinian genocide. Somebody was sharing a video. I think it was at the convention, the DMC convention, of the Democrats just walking by the crowd of pro-Palestinian protesters, literally with their fingers in their ears. That's, yeah. Christy said, devastating here in U.S. My stomach has been in a knot for 2 days. People about to get what they begged for. America, 1776 to 2024. It's, yeah. It's going to get bad before it's going to get a lot worse. Positive, progressive change. It's always possible. It's a hell of a lot harder to do now, but it's still possible. Let's see. Sorry, I'm scanning through a lot of the comments now. I'm just trying to get caught up to the bottom. Daniel saying losing the popular vote by that much is crazy. I thought she might lose for sure, but this was a walloping. I don't think anyone saw the severity of how much she was going to lose. Oops. I don't recognize the number. And I'm one of the people. If I don't recognize the number, I don't answer. Sorry if I'm skipping over a lot of comments right now. I just want to try to get caught up to the conversation. So Life Elon is already making... Ding dong, ding dong. Right, I should have actually just turned off the volume when I did that. There we go. So Life Elon is already making excuses for the economy crashing under Trump. Andrew K. People only turned on Dubaya when the economy melted down, probably going to take the same for Trump. And like I'm worried about what the States is going. They're going to start eyeballing Canada's water supply, because that's going to be a big issue now that you have a bunch of climate change deniers in office and stuff like that. They're going to start eyeing our water up here. And while oil might help make you go and help with giving you money and stuff like that. Water helps you to live and is much more valuable. And I'm worried about that. I am worried about that. John Martinez, Trump caters to the bigotry, their hatred, while robbing them blind, but they don't see it as long as the hatred of the others align with theirs. Oops. And then it jumped. Somebody was going to say something nice about my cat. Benjamin Kendrick, not enough good Canadian political content online. Well, I'm working on it. I'm working my best. I know. Oh, it jumped a lot. Wow. Okay, I'm like really behind in the conversation. So I'm sorry, I'm going to skip over a huge chunk of comments so that I can get caught up to the bottom. Benjamin, thanks for the stream this morning, Sandy. We needed this. It's important for everyone to do what you can when you can. And this is just something that I can do right now. It's a little bit. I kind of figured that there's not too many people who left us who stream this time of day, so I thought I'd just hop on for people who woke up and are just needing to be around someone else. Seth Evans, oh yeah, if the capitalists couldn't brainwash substantial proportions of the population, they'd be cooked even in outright non-democracy. Someone has to be the foot soldiers, etc. You see, I keep on saying that I just need to skip down to the bottom, but then I get caught up reading comments. ADHD, to be a live streamer in ADHD can be a bit problematic at times. Because then I'll see somebody saying like Benjamin Kendrick 100, it's actually a good movie and I love how they showcase journalists, but yeah, it's pretty spot on, says good for Gabby, and I don't know what comment they're replying to, so then I have to go back up and try to see if I can find that comment and stuff. John Martinez, you are helping me cope through this, Sandy. Thank you so much for doing this. As much as I can. You're also helping me cope by being here. If I was just talking to like an empty sandbox right now, I don't think that'd be helping my mental health. Jared B, yes, Merrick Garland twiddled his thumbs and didn't follow through on any of the lawsuits initiated. And John Martinez, the Democrats chose to ignore Trump's crimes and remain milquetoast. Shake my head. Yeah, they should have like gone hard for all the crimes he actually did. Like really, you needed to do that. He should be behind bars right now. Igloo. This morning is surreal. Is there such an equivalent of Groundhog Day, but it's over years, not hours? I don't think we have a time stone, unfortunately. And the thing is that, you know, you look at things like Tim Walz and stuff like that. He was a really good pick, and they did a really good job talking to people and stuff. Yeah. Benjamin Kendrick, it's Sam Cedar on the phone. 519 area code, I don't think so. Besides, that would be a known number, I would hope. Or come up as like, Sam Cedar's finally calling you as the ID. It's Dems calling to take a poll. The vast majority of people who are calling me right now that I don't recognize their phone numbers I know exactly who it is, and that's the NDP. Calling for donations. I know that's who it is, even though I've requested a bunch of times to be taken off their lists. But that's who it is. I know. Midi doctors, there is a silver lining. Trump and men may be such a disaster. Don't know, don't know. You just need a few competent people to run that ship. Midi doctors, everyone is streaming. Really? Oh, okay. Then I guess it's not just me. Let's see. Think Emma will show up? That's a loaded question. Will she be there in body? Yes. Will she be there in mind? Let's see. Okay, I'm down at the bottom of the sandbox. I'm caught up. And people are talking about Sam Cedar now. Having a flush 10 times at the Tim Pool compound. Yeah. Oh, I feel for Sam right now. He's going through a lot. Let's see. Ariel Hoop Guy, I'm so sad. It was my birthday yesterday and I just wanted Kamala Harris to win. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's going to be a hard one for the next while. Oh, you're talking about Trump complaining about having to flush the toilet 10 times. And my brain immediately goes towards Sam Cedar. Because he was mentioning that when he was at the Tim Pool compound, how he left a floater, basically. Grant Johnson, I can't help but think about the women in the U.S. So sad. Yeah. It's so one of the things that I wanted to, I don't know, it's a small example, small way of, when you hit rock bottom type thing. And something I said earlier in the stream, and I think more people have tuned in now. And the thing is that when you have nothing left to lose, that means you only have things to gain. Because if you try something and you fail at it, then you're back to where you have nothing left to lose. So the only thing possible are gains at that point. And it can make people bolder to try new things and different things and really put themselves out there, because what's the worst that can happen? You go back to where you were at rock bottom. And that's the thing, like once you've learned to live at rock bottom, being bold, being daring, doing something doesn't seem so scary anymore because you've already survived it once. And in my early 20s, I was living in Toronto. I went there for college and I had an apartment and stuff, and I had dreams. I wanted to get into acting and stuff. I did some background work. And I had, dreams of being independent and all this sort of stuff. But my mental health had caved pretty bad at that point. And after I was done my certificate program, I was trying very hard to get a job, like just doing anything, everything. And I couldn't get a real job, at least nothing that would pay. And so eventually I had to go on to Ontario Works, and this was before I was able to get onto disability. And when I got onto Ontario Works, at the time, the maximum amount was $530. My rent was $650. The math doesn't work out there. So then Ontario Works said, well, we're only going to give you money for 3 months because you're living above your means in a bachelor apartment. So things started to cascade even more. My mental health was just tanking. The anxiety, everything was horrid. And, I didn't really have anyone to turn to at the time, no real friends. My mom would have taken me in, but I knew she didn't want to. And she wasn't capable of dealing with me. Um, like with my mental health issues and stuff like that, and her own issues and stuff, she did not have the ability to help me in any way whatsoever. And chances are things would have gotten much worse. And in fact, I didn't want to move in with her because my mental health had caved, like I said. And I knew that if I had moved in with my mom, there was a good chance I was putting her safety in danger because I had this inner rage stemming from childhood and stuff that only family, especially my mom, could trigger. Around strangers, completely fine, cool, you can push all the buttons you want, I'm not going to explode. Around my mom, whole other story. And I was actually worried about her safety should I have moved in with her. So I made the choice to go unhoused instead, to keep her safe. And one day she came up to my apartment and they put all my stuff into a truck, boxed it all up, my cats into pet taxis, and I was left at the hospital emergency room with a bag and being committed for mental health issues. Basically, she dropped me off there so I wouldn't unalive myself that night. And then I was on my own. In the hospital, trying to figure out what to do, no clue. Couldn't have Ontario Works. Like, how do you get first and last month's rent? You've got nothing, no job, no address. How are you supposed to survive? How are you supposed to get by? How are you supposed to, get yourself out of that situation when you're struggling so much yourself? How do you figure out anything when you don't know how the system works? You're too young. You don't know what resources are available. You don't have any supports. You don't have family you can turn to. You don't have a single friend. And so I started to really freak out when basically, since I wasn't at risk of unaliving myself, the hospital wanted to kick me out of the psych ward. And I had nowhere to go. None. Fortunately, somebody else in the psych ward was considered a youth like me in our early 20s and knew of a shelter I could go to. And so I went to a youth shelter. They had an opening, I was able to get in. So straight from the hospital into a youth shelter. And it had its issues, it wasn't exactly located in a convenient place because nobody wants those shelters near anything convenient. So when you left in the morning, you had to take the bus to get to the downtown, to get to the soup kitchens and things of that sort. And we were given something called PNA. I forget what it stands for exactly. It was an allowance. The A was for an allowance. It was a weekly stipend of like $24. And we were given 5 bus tickets for the week, which was enough to leave, but not come back every day type thing. So then you would spend money on that, or you'd find other ways of getting money or bus tickets. And they would kick you out first thing in the morning, and you weren't allowed back until the evening, but then you had to be back at a certain curfew. And I was an adult, I used to be making my own hours and stuff, like the idea of having a curfew. But it was also the way everyone suddenly treated me like I was a liar. I was deceitful. I was bad. I was on drugs. I was doing all these things because I'm in a shelter. How else did I get there other than being a horrible person? And I got that vibe from the staff a lot, from other people, but it didn't show when I was on the streets because I didn't look unhoused. Look unhoused, whatever that's supposed to mean. And I was just struggling to navigate the system. Like, I was in desperate need of mental health care, which I couldn't get. Being around strangers, having to share a room, It was hell trying to figure all of that out when I'm used to being on my own. I need my own space. Like, I need my privacy. I need my own space. Having to deal with all these strangers suddenly all around me all the time. I had my sketchbook with me at that time anyway. And it was just the little things. And then I was able to get into another shelter. So the thing is with the first shelter, you were only allowed to stay there for 3 months. And then you had to either have a job or something else and get out of there. But I was able to get into another program where you could stay in longer. And there I was at least able to have my own closet-sized room so I could have a little bit of privacy and stuff. But again, curfews, random nightly checks to see if I'm in my room, like I was in a prison or something. Still sharing space with people, strangers I don't know, personality conflicts, all that sort of stuff. When I was in the shelter, my mom had taken in my cats. One of them passed away, and at that time he was my anchor. He is what Frodo is to me now. That cat was my world, because the other cats that I had, they would be fine. But that one cat, I think he died of a broken heart, because he had bonded with me and just me. And he died alone. And that broke me even more. And so I was trying my best just to figure out what to do next. Tried to get involved with programs, try to get a job. But how do you get a job when, you're living in a shelter, when you don't have resources, when, all these things? Because I had tried so hard to get a job when I did have an address. And here I was, no address, no real good work history, no college diploma. How was I supposed to get by? And, some days I just did nothing. When it was the lead up to becoming unhoused, so many days it was just waking up, killing time before going back to sleep, wishing I wouldn't wake up the next morning, waking up the next morning, upset I woke up, killing time until I had to go back to sleep. And in the shelter, sometimes I just lost this, what do you do? How do you get out of it? And I met someone. He became my first boyfriend. It took me that long to get a boyfriend or a partner of any sort. And he wasn't physically abusive, but mentally, he was familiar. He was a sociopathic liar. Everything he said was a lie. But that was my family. That was people in my family. And so, despite how obvious it was, how blatant it was, I was still drawn to it. Even though now I look back to it and it's like, yeah. And, when you're in the shelter, you learn to cope. You learn to use the tools you have around you. You learn to network with different types of people. You learn to, you learn how to use the systems fast because you're in crisis mode. So you find out, okay, here's the soup kitchen, here's another resource, here's another resource, here's this, here's that. And you're on the go all the time trying to figure out what's next. And I spent an entire year in the shelter system, all the holidays, everything. And I remember the odd thing about Christmas there was everyone liked to donate, to the shelters around the holidays so that they would feel good for the rest of the year. And so we were able to have a big turkey dinner and everything. And I remember all of us sitting out in the main lobby of the shelter and all these turkeys and food. And even though none of us were related, we could all relate. And for all of us, spending that time together was far more pleasant than if any of us had tried to spend time with our families. Because that's one of the misconceptions people have, especially with the youth and stuff. It's like, well, don't you have family? Everyone there had family. But the options were so bad with the family that it caused them to go into the shelter, kind of like it did with me. And like even just going home to visit my cats, I could only do that once, twice a month because I was, my home was way out of Toronto, so I'd have to travel. But again, you have a curfew. You're only allowed a few nights away from the shelter because if you can do more than a couple nights away from the shelter in any given month, then obviously you don't need to be in the shelter. Like there's all these constraints, all these rules. And again, people just looking down on you for being in the shelter in the first place, that there must be something wrong with you, that you're lying and all this sort of stuff, that you can't be trusted. And to me, that was a polar opposite because I was always the person that was the good kid, could be trusted, was honest and truthful, and everyone knew that about me. And to have that immediate flip with how people treated me was quite jarring. But eventually, with that boyfriend of mine, we were able to move back to my hometown together and move into an apartment that my mom had in the house that she was living in. And that relationship eventually ended by me filing a missing persons report because he just disappeared. Finding out I'm single by detectives telling me he's fine. Yeah. Which was devastating, and my mental health continued to get worse. And it got to the point where I qualified for disability because my mental health was just so bad. And disability was enough to just keep me afloat. And it's important at times like that to find something to keep you afloat. You might be using all of your energy to tread the water, but it's important that you do until the current changes, until something happens, somebody throws you a lifeline, the current changes. It's important to just keep your head above water. And since that time, my life has been a roller coaster. But I would hear people say, they wouldn't be able to go homeless. They wouldn't know what to do. They wouldn't do this. This is horrible. That would be you learn to survive it. No matter how bad it gets, you find the coping mechanisms, you learn to survive it. And I hate the phrase, ooh, well, it made you stronger. No, you learn to use the tools you have. There's that poem I have. It wasn't the pain that I went through that made me stronger. It was how I learned to adapt and compensate that made me stronger. It wasn't the bad things that happened to me that made me who I am. It was my ability to overcome those bad things that shaped me into who I am. I am not the result of the wrong that happened to me. I'm a result of my perseverance to keep going. Therefore, I'm not defined by the events of my past. I'm defined by everything it took to get me here. The people in the future will be defined by the actions they take right now to get through this moment, to push through it, to find that light. Because right now we don't even have that light, but it's important that you keep searching for it. You learn the tools, you learn to cope, you learn to organize, and you learn fast. Because the important thing is to just survive it in the moment. Survive it. Do what you can when you can. Get through it. And sometimes if all you can do is just keep your head above water, then that's what you do. Until somebody is able to throw you that lifeline, until the current changes, until you can finally touch ground. It's important to just keep going, to not give in, to not let yourself just give into the water and submerge yourself. It's important to just keep pushing forward and know you're not alone. So many other people are in the same situation as you right now, and we all want someone else. But we all need to turn to each other and be that other person for someone else. And when enough of us do that, real change can happen. But we will be defined as a people, as a period in history, will be defined by what we do now to make it through this. And it's important for people to keep that in mind going forward. I can't even say we're at rock bottom right now because we're not. I know things can still get a lot worse for a lot of people. it's important to just survive the moment, to learn the tools, to figure out how to use the tools that are available to you, because the tools that maybe you were taught are no longer available. The tools that you ideally wish you had are no longer available. But you have to learn to use the tools that are presented to you at any given time. So it's so important to just turn to one another, help each other out, be a shoulder, be an ear, do a live stream for people to be able to commiserate with each other. It's not over. Progressive change is possible. It is always possible. It's just gotten a hell of a lot harder, but it's possible. And, you know, I'm not so Pollyannish to say, we're going to get through this, we're going to make it through and stuff like that, because this will change people. This will change the way we think about the world, the way we think about our neighbors. Most of us will get through this, but we won't come out of it being the same person we were when we started. I am not the same person I was now than when I got into the shelter system. What happened there changed me as who I am as a person. And other events in my life, that keeps on happening. So we are now changed as a people going forward. And it's important to try to change into something we want to be, not something we're forced to change into. And so it's important to just take whatever tool you have and use it to the best of your ability. Do what you can when you can. Okay, let's check the sandbox. Majority report should be starting soon. And I think when it does, we should all go over there and give a whole hell of a lot of support to Emma and Matt and Bradley. Sam won't be there. Just, again, super hard time for him right now with the passing of his mother. So, you know, positive thoughts, all that sort of stuff. But let's check the sandbox. Benjamin, maybe America needs to hit real rock bottom to see the light. It's going to be a rough time, I fear, for people. Yeah. The thing about hitting the bottom of the barrel is that when you cut a hole through it, you find out that there's usually another barrel below it. It is like, I'm not Pollyannish about it. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But we can still eventually right the ship, but the momentum is going in one direction right now, and it's going to take a lot of work and energy to actually pull it around. But it's doable. It's doable. Like, you look at where we have been as a humanity, as a species, and we have been improving. It's just, as I say, it's not 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's more like 10 steps forward, 8 steps back, and we're only at the 5th step backwards. So, you know, things used to be a hell of a lot worse for people globally. And depending on where you are, I don't think it could get any worse, because there are places in the world where they're seeing that you can't get any worse than what they're living through right now. But as a whole, the world is better, but it is backsliding right now. So it's important that, you know, it's not just on Americans, it's not just on Canadians, it's all of us, people on the left, progressives, people who believe in the fellow human being and all that sort of stuff. We have to start networking globally. It can't just be locally, it has to be globally. Like, definitely network locally for your own sanity and your own safety, but much more networking has to happen. The right has done that, and that's why they're so successful right now. Because when we talk about money in politics and stuff like that, yes, the conservatives up here will get a lot more money because there's a lot more money on the right. And I guarantee you, a lot of the people that helped Trump win will be putting money in towards helping Pierre Poilievre win. So it's important that we start networking globally as well. Let's see. John Martinez had dreams of being a professional narrator since I have the voice and and studied English in college. Never showed up but earned a C. Had to work, however, and that ended my dreams forever. Winter, thank you for this. Thank you for coming out. Choki, oh my God, I relate, but I was terrified of my mother. Yeah, the choice was to move in with my mother or go unhoused, and I chose to go unhoused to keep her safe. I didn't trust myself around her. My rage. John Martinez, my getting therapy sooner ruined my mental health. The last time I exploded was because my mother. Never have I been angry since talking about her abandoning my sis and I. Suicide crossed my mind, but I chose to carry on. Yeah, the thing is that, like, my mom and I actually have a good relationship now. You know, we're not close, but we do have a good relationship, and I understand now more of the struggles, you know, what she grew up in, the tools she had and stuff. And she was doing the best she could with what she knew. And what was it? There was a phrase. It was, I don't hate my mom because she was only using the tools she had. And I'm not mad at my mom because she used those tools the best that she knew how. But I love and forgive my mom because despite all of that, she was still somehow able to provide me with a better life than what she had. You know, we don't, like I said, we're not close, but I know more of what she went through. I know all of this. And despite all of our shortcomings, especially when I was younger and stuff, she still supported me in the ways that she understood. And she still supports me now. And so we have a good-ish relationship now, like we're good. So, you know, things can change. But I also got lots of therapy over my life. And looking back at it now, I realize why in the end none of it worked. And that is I'm autistic and therapy is designed for neurotypical people. Doesn't really work when you're autistic. And that's why a lot of the therapy I went through, while it might help momentarily, it never helped. Jokey, I've attempted suicide seriously 3 times. I feel you. I've done, yeah. One attempt, I don't call it an attempt. I was interrupted. Had I not been interrupted, it would have been successful. And that was exactly 11 years ago today. Exactly 11 years ago today. Oddly enough, it was also a Wednesday. Hunger Games 1989. I have tried telling people that corporations and both major parties are enemies. I am told I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect, I guess. We know a bit more, so we know what we don't know, but everybody else, they think they know what's going on, so then they'll just accuse us of not knowing, something like that. So Life Porole disabled the dislike button on her recent video. I haven't watched it yet. I was planning to. Jebediah, thanks for the origin story. I'm still working on my origin story. It's not over yet. I'm still working to be that, that superhero someday. That's just a small part of my origin story, I guess. Small part of who I am today. Choki, I speak to 1 out of 5 siblings. My father was helpless, probably undiagnosed something. Yeah, the thing about autism and stuff like that, a lot of it's genetic. And in the last few years of my grandmother's life, we became really close. And even though I didn't know I was autistic back then, my grandmother and I were very much alike. And now that I look back and I see her behaviors and some of the things that she was doing, yeah, she was autistic. And I knew at a young age I would never be able to handle children. Never. And I didn't want children. I wouldn't be able to handle children. I would have been a horrible parent. And she was like me. She should have never had kids. But she didn't have that choice back in her day. She had to get married. She had to have children. That was her role. She should have never been a parent. And I don't think she wanted to be one. And her mother was also horrible to her. So it's all a cycle. And I knew, even based on the limited knowledge that I knew back then, I knew the only way for me to break that cycle was to not have kids. Benjamin, the mental health care system is broken in Canada. I've experienced both in Alberta and BC. Yeah, after I've had attempts, I've been the one that has to go advocate for myself to get help. That doesn't work that way. Let's see. Lady Badash, that reminds me, which American are you going to marry? I haven't received any applications yet. You know, there's a couple of people I have in mind that I would... The only way I would ever get married is to help people get better, because I don't believe in marriage in principle or for religion. Let's see. John Martinez, oh, I have family, but I don't want to be around family that won't allow me to be myself. Yeah, no. Before I ended up in the shelter system, I knew I had to cut off a lot of my family because I was getting literal nightmares before Christmas. Nightmares before having to see them and deal with them. Let's see. Has the majority of party even started? Oh, they have. Okay. I'm going to quickly finish going through the sandbox, and then I suggest that we all go over and give a lot of love and support to Emma and the majority report. Let's see. Carrie, Barry, do you have any thoughts as to how we could bolster enthusiasm and avoid a PC government in Ontario? We need a far better candidate than Mayor Stiles. It's just getting people informed, getting people aware of the realities. Unfortunately, there is very little we can do unless we have a party we can be energetic about. Like a party we can point to and be, okay, we're not just doing harm reduction. Here's a party that we can get happy about. And Merit Styles is not going to be that, unfortunately. So we won't be able to get people energized. It will be just a matter of trying to get enough people out to do harm reduction voting this next election, unfortunately. I don't think there's enough time because I also think that shortly after the federal election, which is most likely going to be called in the spring, we're going to have a provincial election. Point people to my channel. I'll be talking a lot about Doug Ford in the lead up to the election. You can damn well be sure of that. But it's It's a matter of just trying to impress people the harms, the reality of what he is, and harm reduction. Low voter turnout is the enemy in this situation. John Martinez, all you can do is move forward. It's devastating. Jebediah, you have depression and anxiety? Among other things, yes. It was diagnosed bipolar at one point. Manic depressive, pretty much the same thing. I'm heavily medicated for depression. Have a hard time regulating my emotions. Anxiety is a huge, huge issue. I can go into very depressive spells and become unfunctional. It's a disability. Andrew K, thank Sandy, you are inspirational. Well, thank you for coming out. I think we all need each other right now. Choki says Sandy is right. I'm not entirely sure what that is in reference to, so everything. So life, it still sets us back decades at best. Yeah, no, we're 10 steps forward, 8 steps back. We're only on the 5th step back. Jebediah discovered that people do not appreciate when you are depressed around them. Most people would much rather have you anxious even than depressed around them, so I had to deal with it on my own. Yeah, I got a lot of, can't you just fake it for this? Put on a smile and fake it for this event? Can't you just do that at least? Can you stop being such a burden? One of the problems with my mom when I was younger again is she would tell me how much of a burden I was. Emotionally, it was emotionally draining. Wasn't getting the supports I need. And then when you're not getting supports from anyone, as soon as somebody offers it, you cling on to them and then suddenly they can't support you. And I have lots of discussions and talks I can do about that type of relationship and how unhealthy it is. And it's something I still suffer to this day. I burn people out because I do have some good friends, but sometimes I fear going to them all the time because I don't want to burn them out too. Because some people, I do regularly burn people out. I don't mean to, it just happens. But, that's the thing, like, I'd love to be invited out more. I'd love to be invited onto other podcasters and stuff like that, but nobody wants a mentally ill, depressed person around them all the time, even though I'm very good at masking. I can be a social butterfly. I can be sarcastic, funny, light, all of that sort of stuff. And people don't mind me when I'm like that, but it takes a lot of energy out of me to be that all the time, which is part of the reason why I like living alone, because when I'm alone and by myself, I don't have to fake it for anyone. My cats love me for who I am. John Martinez, I agree, Sandy. We will be defined by what we do now. Choki, have to go. Door, sorry. No worries. Rachel Atwood, 52% of white women are happy not having that choice. Yeah. And lots more really, good comments. I wish I could get to everyone's comments, all that sort of stuff. But I wasn't planning on doing this. I need to go unwind, play some games, pet some cats. But let's all head over to the majority report, check in with them. Thank you everyone for coming out. This was a spontaneous stream. I don't know, message me a lot and put a lot of comments under this live stream if you think you're going to need another one later on tonight because we're still, again, raw and fresh with this. And I don't know how many other people are streaming tonight. I imagine the serfs will be streaming at their regular time. So we'll see how it goes. The letter hack is probably still traveling back from Brooklyn because he went to the live show. So he might not have a show tonight. So let me know in the comments section and stuff if you would like in there kind of chill out emotional support stream much later tonight. So until then, I'm not going to do my regular Benjamin, you call into the majority part quite regularly. I get through. I'm Sandy from Ontario. I always forget to mention Left of the Box when I call in, though. So, okay. I'm not doing my regular, like I didn't do my regular intro. I'm not going to do my regular outro. So I just want everyone to take care of yourselves and, you know, do what you can when you can. It's okay to feel horrid in this moment. Just remember you're not alone. There's people around you. You're part of this community, so you know for a fact you're cared for. And it's so important to keep that in mind right now. You are part of this community. There are people here who care for you, and we want everyone here to succeed and be better. So you're not alone. And with all of that, I think I'm going to wrap it up for now. I'm just going to do my logo with sound for a bit because I always get annoyed when people end stream and it's weird because it cuts them off half sentence. So if I end with my logo, then hopefully that won't happen. So bye, and I'll see you all again soon.